Hello, my gently used humans, and welcome back to the podcast. You know, I think it's such a human tendency to spend a lot of time looking outside of ourselves for answers, but today's guest is going to help us turn that search inward. Joining me is the talented Lindsay Roth, a TV producer, author, and mother who knows firsthand about balancing life's many demands with grace and determination. In this episode, Lindsay and I explore the art of asking the right questions, not just to others, but to ourselves. We'll talk about finding clarity, setting boundaries, and navigating the challenges of relationship, career, and self-discovery. From everyday choices like deciding between laundry and dishes to meaningful discussion about reframing stress and rebuilding resilience, the episode offers insights that will resonate with anyone who's ever wondered how to live more fully and truthfully. Take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's dive into a conversation that might just change how you approach your life, your relationships, and yourself. Let's get curious. Lindsay, welcome to the Gently Used Human. What a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited for our time together.
I'm excited too. You have done so much. You have produced some major big shows. You've worked on like the Grammys and Larry King Now and the Tonys and written books. And have you always just been this multifaceted, multi-entrepreneurial individual?
Yes. Creatively though, like I come from a family of attorneys and straight arrows. And I was always the different one who wanted to do things her own way and pave my own way and be journalism, creative storytelling anomaly that no one in my family had ever seen before, and always took on so many different things.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you could just do one thing?
No.
Is that like in your nature?
No, it's not. And this was like, I grew up before social media, before you actually were doing multiple things at the same time. I was always figuring things out, and where I was getting no's, I was trying to turn them into a yes. And so I was talking my way in and out of situations.
How did you do that? Like what was the magic skill set that you could find your way into these wild?
Such a good question. I think being friendly and listening and understanding this is like TV producing 101, right? But understanding your audience and knowing what your goal is and all of that, I think that's the way in.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to come back to knowing what your goal is as though that's something easy for most of us, when I'm not so sure it is.
I don't mean your life goal all the time. I mean, if you know what your goal is in the next 15 minutes, that's good too.
I think that's actually a beautiful antidote, because I think we can get wrapped into like, what's your goal? What truly matters to you? And you can get like in the existential whirlwind of just like overwhelm. I find that. And I actually really like that as a hack right away. Do people still say hack as a tool, as an exercise?
Tool. Do you know, so I have little kids, very young. They're almost 5 and almost 7. And I read something once that someone prolific said, and it was like, you have the tendency when you're dealing with your children to think, well, how is what they're doing right now? Is that habit going to be there when they're 20? Like, am I setting that by this one little instance? Is if I don't discipline them now, are they not going to be able to handle this when they're 20? And whoever this therapist was, and I wish I could remember it, they were like, hold on a minute. Just think of next week. You don't have to think about the next decade. And that really hit home for me, because especially with kids, especially with relationships, especially with big things in life, you go to the far out versus the immediate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't name the client, but like I have several clients, and one in particular that comes to mind, that they ask this like very sweet question, which is consistently, which is, if I do this, if I didn't hug them long enough, will that affect their attachment style? They didn't come immediately to me. Did I do something to affect how they're going to be as adults? And the answer is similar. It's like, whoa. What's happening in you in this moment? Ooh, that stings that they didn't come to me right away. They came to the other parent. Or the concern of like, when you're wrapped in the anxiety of what's could happen in the future, how is that affecting your ability to be with them in the present or yourself?
Yeah.
And there's a consequence. That's where the consequence shows up.
Yeah,
Is
I think not being in the present is the
not being
issue.
in. Yeah. And we can say that, but that's absolutely not as easy as it sounds.
Nothing is ever as easy as it sounds.
Speaking of, as a producer, that's the magic of movies, where it just is like somehow it all makes sense. Like we can see the logic in the
Or social media.
or social media, like through the filters of social media, things just like, oh, they're so easy. Everyone's having a good time,
I
or
wake up like this.
I wake up with this makeup filter just happens to be on.
I mean, good lighting. Thank God for good
Good
lighting.
lighting. Thank God for good lighting. That's really how you get your way into different
Good lighting.
scenarios, is good lighting. No, but it's true, Lindsay. You're right. It's like nothing as easy as it looks, and if it does look as easy as it looks, it's bullshit.
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Even the research on stress, and it's like the actual like originator of that term outside of architecture, when he's talking about stress, is he's talking about our ability to be in this constant state of adaptability, this dance of life, as opposed to like stress is this doom thing, or stress is something we should just be able to always maneuver. It's like, it's how much resource do we have in any given moment to be in the dance of adaptability to the stressors of life.
I love how you say that. I love it because I was thinking as you were talking about running or working out, and when you stress your muscles, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then they repair.
Yeah.
And so the thought that we have of stress is always this negative thing, but it's not.
No, exactly. And the more we think about it as negative, and the more we encounter it with that negative thought, the more toxic our experience of it is, when it's actually not.
Right?
Yeah. Like when we can take the lens off of something that's negative, like even having to go produce Larry King Now could be considered negative and challenging, or the Grammys or the Tonys, like all of that. Or what is the lens to which we want to view it from will affect our physiology and our mind state.
For sure. I mean, for me, that was my dream, but someone else, that might absolutely set them over the edge, because they have no desire, no idea how to do it, whatever. But yeah, it depends on your starting point too, right?
Yeah. Did you know you hit your dream when you hit your dream?
Oh, that's such a good question. There have been times in my life where I can tell you there are a few specific times where I knew I was at the right place, at the right moment, at the right time, with the right person, and that things had landed where I hoped they would land, if that makes sense. And it's hit me sometimes. It's literally like hit me in the face, in a way of, oh my God, this is what I've been working so hard for, or oh, this is what it feels like. And then to also answer your question, there have been a few times you go through life, or you go through something that's hard and you come out the other side. But while you're going through this hard thing, you're thinking, why me? Why do I have to go through this? Everyone else is getting this and I'm still struggling. And then you get to the other side and you realize, you're lucky enough if you realize why you went through that struggle, and you realize it was all worth it, because what you got, you might have waited for it longer, but you got it better.
We say that again. I just want that to melt into everyone's heart right now who's struggling and who's in that place of just,
So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go straight to relationships, because that's what we're going to end up talking about. But something that I said in my vows, I won't say it as beautifully now because I haven't looked at those for a very long time, and I only said them out loud once in my life. But I said something like, I didn't always know why, but I waited longer and I got it better.
That's so sweet. And I don't know, it feels hopeful.
Yeah, I am a person who chooses to approach life positively, from a happier, positive, glass half full standpoint, not unrealistically, because I think that head in the clouds is not a good thing. But, I have people in my family who suffer from depression, or who they would take your drama quiz probably. And, and there are questions on there that are like, do you feel overwhelmed by life? And do you feel like you're not getting it, things like other people? And who would answer yes to those questions. But I've made it a very conscious decision to approach my life in a positive, optimistic way. Always.
What do you think that's done for you and those around you?
People often ask, why are you so positive? Or why are you so happy? Or how do you, I'm a producer, right? I have to have a lot of balls in the air at once.
Yeah.
How do you go through situations and not lose your shit? And I just think it comes from realism blended with optimism, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You seem like that in terms of a really positive, calm, kind, mellow, but like hip outlook.
I try. I mean, like, I like most humans, like have my moments of really like, why me? I'm not out of that even.
No, of course. So do I, of course.
And but I do know what you mean. And I've said it enough times to people of like, I think the thing that I have kind of pat myself on the back lately for is the ability to hang out with the support of a lot of good people in the depths of ache, and to keep going. I actually know, because I've been here before, that what I think is my rock bottom, or what I think is the bottom of this process, is not. And to keep kind of letting myself go further into it as long as I can get up in the morning.
And surrounding yourself with people who you can be that with, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I always carried like a piece of paper in my pocket, so to speak, mentally,
I love
of I know that I have to learn this for a better life. Whatever is in the meaning making and the wisdom that is accrued through moving through the pain, not like swimming in it, but moving through it, is the thing that's ultimately going to make my life better than it was before. And, I was just talking with a friend this weekend. He came to visit and is in the process of setting up for a divorce. And we were really talking through, and he had the first cry he's had in years.
That's big.
It's huge. And he texted me, he's like, I'm still feeling that cracked openness. And I said, I hear you. It's painful. It's so painful. And what I know for myself and what I hear from everyone is that the pain of moving through it feels like so much, but it is, what's on the other end is so much better than the freeze and the shrinking and the lack of being alive that we were experiencing before.
Yeah, and he must have felt so safe with you, right? And how good does that feel for you to know that you're his safe place?
Yeah. And finding those people is everything.
Hold on to those people, right?
Oh my gosh.
Hold on to them. Oh.
Yeah.
And sometimes those people change, right? There are certain people that aren't your whole life people that way, but sometimes you have the people that are, a few years here and there, and then the constants. And God, if you find those people,
hang on to them.
Life's easier.
Even if there's like a fight, or, like that, like, find the repair, because like, oof, those people it's unique, it's special, and it's not common.
Yeah. I look, I have a few people in my life like that. And I love them as if they're my family, they're mine. I have this deep love for them, and I'm grateful for them. And I was going to say, you made me think before, I think even in those deep, dark times, to just take a step and think, what am I grateful for? What do I have to be happy? Might be not the word that people are seeking at that moment, but what do I have that is good? Is just another way to find a little bit of positivity.
Yeah. Or balance it out, or, give some counter support or resource to keep having to hold and be with the pain. And I think one of the things that also is illuminating, and it sounds like you've been through this experience too, is like whatever we're dealing with in the moment is not just the moment. Like a lot of the patterns, how we got to that moment or that challenge of relationship are also going to, if we let them, sometimes we don't have a choice, unravel. And we're mourning not only that relationship or that loss of the job or that challenge with whatever aspect of our life, but we're also dealing with that loss of identity or the unraveling of those survival strategies that actually kind of in part created the scenario we were in.
For sure. I talked to Lori Gottlieb. Are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with her? She's
Yeah.
amazing. And she said something that ever since she told it to me, it's resonated with me since, and I use it a lot. She said, if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Mm.
And I love that because something could be making us feel this way or a certain way, but if you're reacting at a 10 and someone else is reacting at a 4 or 5, it means that something from your past is probably causing you to go from that normal to extreme reaction.
Yeah.
And it's not just that nugget that's right in front of you that's causing you the pain. It's everything surrounding it is giving you that explosion.
Yeah. Which is also helpful to sort of depersonalize when someone we're with, perhaps in a relationship, is at an 8 or a 10 or doing things that doesn't make sense to the person we thought we knew. It's because they're in not just their current day self, but so many variations of pain from their past.
Of course. And some, if you've talked to this person and you've had conversations with this person and you've felt comfortable sharing about those times in your life, it is actually quite easy as the other person to say, so I see what you're saying, but I feel like you're bringing this and this in. And that's why you're having the reaction that you're having.
Yeah.
But that can only happen if that person lets you in.
Yes, lets you in and has the capacity, or there's enough co-regulation or something to also go, oh my gosh, you're right. I've been
There's
certainly
a lot of steps there. I get it.
Yeah, I've certainly been in relationships where I've said, hey, this feels like there's a young part here that's really hurting. And I want to, how can I love both you and that part? And the reaction is like, screw you, stop calling me a kid, or,
Has
or
anyone
any.
ever told you to stop therapizing them?
Sure. I mean, that's the problem with being a therapist, and I will be honest, is like you get used to a certain languaging where it's like I'm not actually sure how to speak sometimes as a human. Although I've gotten better at it, and I will say, like, in that way of going, hey, this feels like it's so much right now for you. Can we pause? Can we check it? Like, what else is coming up? And I've done that both with someone who they did not have the emotional maturity to. They use that to just turn around and say, like, you're the worst human being, or all those awful things. I've also been with people, thank goodness, as a corrective experience, who's like, thank you for holding space and just reflecting back that, like, you see me and you recognize that the intensity is not only this moment or just you. It's also like a lot of my history.
Yeah, I think that takes courage and safe space and people who understand themselves first.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we don't have to be complete or healed to come into any relationship, including friendship.
Right.
But we have to have a certain baseline of self-awareness to be in the material of relationships as they have their natural flows of rupture and repair.
Yeah, for sure. I think you learn how to do that as you go through life too.
Yeah. You get your relational reps in, as my dear friend
I
Huck
love
says.
that.
I know. That was actually when I went through a breakup, and she was reflecting back on like her observation of the relationship.
Were you ready for this observation? Was this were you prepared for her to lay this on you?
I was. And I think she's one of the people I respect most in the world in their observation, because it's so kind and it's so full of love.
That's good.
And she said, look, I never thought this person was safe for you. And I was like, whoa, like that's so meaningful coming from you. And she said, and I knew how important it was for you to get some relational reps in, to really work on being able to say what your boundaries were and feel what it's like to say them and for them to be continuously crossed and to see what you do next.
So I've learned a lot about boundaries in my own life.
Yeah. In what
just
way?
because it's something that I have to work on. And something I'm a people pleaser and I'm not naturally good at. And I come from a family who boundaries are just not a thing. And that's okay. It is what it is. It's just our makeup, right? But then I've learned from people I've spoken to, Nicole LaPera, Alexandra Solomon, like really great people about how boundaries start with you. Yeah. Boundaries are not, I'm going to ask you to stop texting me. Boundaries are, I'm going to block you so that you can't text me. The boundary starts with me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people don't understand most about boundaries, because a lot of people who have boundary issues, they have boundary issues because they're surrounded by people who have no boundaries.
Yeah. I heard, we were talking about a friend of ours before we started talking, and I said, Sabrina. And I really love what she said recently. She was like, the only person she was talking about boundaries, and like, we can affirm our boundaries, but someone can't just actually break our boundaries, because we can say no and walk away. That doesn't mean we're not talking about abuse. We're not talking about like significant obstructions, because in the end, if we take away our own boundary, that's us breaking our boundary.
Right.
And so it was a real like back to like, this is our empowerment with boundaries, saying, hey, when you say stuff like that, it's really hard for me to be able to be present with you, to hear you. I need to be spoken to in a way that is respectful. And this is what respectful sounds like to me. And then they continue to do it. And if I stay, because of, gosh, my own fears of abandonment, I'll never be loved again, I'll never have this friendship again, I won't have this job if I walk or any other job in my life, or whatever keeps us in it, then it's us who's actually breaching our own boundary.
And that's so hard to do, right? This is not easy. This is like some major work has to go into being able to do this, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have a clearer sense of your boundaries now after working for it for a while?
Yeah, I think that with age and maturity and distance from certain situations, and for me, a good partner who helps me see sometimes with what I struggle, yes. Also knowing, I think the first step in seeing that something's an issue, whether it's with boundaries or anything else, is knowing that it's an issue, right?
Yeah.
Or it's something that you struggle with.
Yeah.
Because if you don't actually see your part in something, you can't fix it.
Wait, it takes two to tango?
Can you believe it?
It's this is a tension point that I think is in a lot of the wellness space right now. Is like the books that are doing really well are the ones that are focusing on other people as the problem, really giving them the label and the diagnosis. This is what it looks like with this person is a gaslighter or a narcissist, and there is truth to the way that they are behaving is harmful. And what also is hard to do, especially when that's been rewarded to some degree of saying it really is them, it becomes much harder to be like, and what was my part in this? Look, I've been in pretty toxic, abusive relationships, and to ask myself the question, what was my part in this, is excruciating, because I could say nothing. I didn't throw silver plates and silverware at me. Like, I didn't do any of that.
Right.
But I can say questions like, what attracted me to this person? Why couldn't I leave?
And why did I allow it to happen for as long as it did?
Exactly. And that still takes two to tango in that way.
Of course. And what am I going to do to spot these behaviors early on? And how am I not going to let myself get sucked into them?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. Exactly.
And also, who from my past and my childhood was an example of this kind of behavior? And why am I so attracted to that?
Oh my gosh. That is such, and when we get the answer to that question, that is so incredibly painful.
Well, so the problem with getting the answer to that question is that you have the answer to the question, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yep.
then if you choose to ignore it,
yes,
that's also on you.
Yeah. Oof, so much on us. Let's talk
I
about
know,
other people
but
again.
you and I make it sound so easy. Like none of this is easy. It's so much easier said than done, or said by someone else about you.
Yeah. And there's something to say about like, and I really want people to hear this. It's like when we're saying and inviting this radical accountability and responsibility of our own part, the parts of us, the survival strategies that we use that have in part put us to some degree in these situations, in this job again, in this relationship again, in this challenging moment, doesn't make the whole of who we are. And that's really important to know, is that pattern of that pattern that kept getting me into these relationships with severe addicts. Like I could go, okay, I'm the one who's really messed up. Or there's a hurt part of me, like a little kiddo, that just kept getting magnetized to the familiar because that's what was familiar and what I deemed safe.
And knowing that I don't have to make that choice again.
And knowing I don't have to make that, reclaiming agency.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oof, that's powerful.
Look at us today.
Look at us, just powering up.
I love it. I find that when a long-term relationship is ending or a marriage is ending, we are conditioned to say that has failed.
Yeah.
This is a failure.
Yeah.
And I really want to change the narrative around that, because they're not failures. They might not have worked out for a lifetime, but they worked out for when they worked out.
Yeah.
And they will enable you to either choose to never be in a relationship again, to do something different the next time, to heal from your wounds, to get yourself out of a bad situation. And all of those things kind of contribute to our future DNA and to our choices. So I really do want to put that out there, that those aren't failures. Those are powering up, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the same, I think, is true for a job. And even if we, a job or a friendship or even a project we were really excited by, and it sucks, it doesn't mean it doesn't suck. Oh my gosh, it sucks so bad for that relationship to end, or it sucks so bad not to get that job or the job to end, or whatever it is. And it also is, if we can, and this is to say, like, sometimes we fall into such a deep depression where we cannot excavate and resource the gold from this experience, and that's also okay.
But this is where I would look to you as your holistic side and be like, what holistic things can we do to dig ourselves out of that hole? Because intellectually, I can't get myself out of there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's going and moving and being around your coven, or your not coven. Although I like that. Around your community or your friends, or sometimes it's a rehab center, or sometimes it's medication. It can be multiple things. That's about building enough of the resources to be able to touch and to mine the gold.
I love that.
And power up. Can't forget to power up.
You should write some books. You've got some stuff going on here.
Oof, just maybe 2 books at a single time is my max, though.
That I don't know how you're doing.
I want to take a moment to give a loud shout out to the Embody Lab, which is one of the most incredible resources for body-based and somatic therapies. This show is all about healing, and the Embody Lab does exactly that. Whether you're on your own journey of transformation and discovery, or enhancing your skill sets in your career as like a coach or a therapist, a body worker, or really any career where you are supporting other gently used humans, the Embody Lab is your place for deep, inspiring, and impactful workshops, certificates, masterclasses, and an incredible community of like-minded folks. I love the Embody Lab. And so do so many other people that call it a platform to come home to over and over again. The Embody Lab is giving my listeners an exclusive offer, a one-time 10% off code to enhance your embodied well-being. All you have to do is go to theembodylab.com and use the code GentlyUse10 at checkout. You know, one of the things that I really love about you and you talk about a lot is identifying what truly matters. And I want to go back to that piece of what we were saying. It's like, okay, this is actually much easier said than done, I think. And how did you start and how do you help people find what truly matters as like a compass for their life?
It's a great question. I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older. I think living through COVID has helped me specifically do that and I identify what's really important and look, I'm a busy working mom.
Yeah.
I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a producer, I'm an author. I have a lot of things, as we all do. Yeah. But there's not always time for all of it at the same time, right? And I actually read a really good book recently by Bonnie Hammer, and it was 15 mistakes that people make in the workplace. And she has a whole chapter that really resonated with me, all about choices and how life is about choices. And you can't always have them all, but you do have your choices. And that really stuck with me about something that if you focus on what your choices are, you can try and pick the right thing at the right time for you.
I love that. I think one of the ways I'm also thinking about it is like when something feels off or like there's this like kind of chronic or anxiety.
Yeah.
I like to start to think about it as like, okay, where did I deviate from what truly matters? And, or what I thought like truly mattered is maybe at a certain point it shifted and I didn't shift with it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
That resonates
but
for
also,
you.
I think doing the work and asking questions versus just going through things and not having your own perspective or not understanding your thoughts or not questioning your partner about something, your potential partner about something, not always knowing what to ask, but not just floating through. Finding out what really matters to you.
It sounds like for you, one of the big pathways into finding is also asking questions, getting curious, discovering.
Communication.
It's almost like you wrote a book
with
a bunch of questions. Do you love that segue?
For no one. So I'm starting to do the press tour for my book. My book. And no one's made a better segue than that so far.
Oh, okay.
You won the segue award.
I didn't even mean to, but as we were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, the book. This is, this is because it's like, I don't think it's so obvious about helping for us to identify what truly matters. And like, there's so much noise in the world. There's so much other like distractions and static and like getting to the heart of what truly matters takes a lot of patience, but investigation. And you wrote this book that has a collection of over 250 questions, which I don't know if you know this about me, but my love language is asking questions and receiving them.
So I didn't know that, but that makes me so happy because I think the sexiest, healthiest, long-term romantic relationships succeed because of practical communication.
Yeah. And within practical communication and what gets excavated, let's say, with questions, I know you talk about like helping, it really helps people identify things like what are their wants, what are their needs, what are their non-negotiables, and how do we separate or label or what would be the definition of wants versus needs versus non-negotiables?
So I think the words wants, needs, and non-negotiables are great if you are, writing a one-liner about something, like a book about, romance, practicality, dating questions. But understanding what each of those things are is so important, and in a concrete way. So like wants. I want a relationship that makes me feel happy, right? That's something that people would say, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Because there's nothing concrete there. What makes you feel happy? What in a relationship or a partner makes you feel happy? Does that mean you guys do crossword puzzles at night before bed? Does that mean you go for runs together? Does that mean you try new restaurants? Those are concrete things that when you're trying to find happiness with a partner, you can do to get there, right? So then that's your wants. Your needs, it's the same thing. I need someone who is spiritual. Okay, that sounds great. What does spiritual mean? Because for me, that's not necessarily going to a religious institution. It might be meditating or, reading my horoscope. For you, that might mean going to church and having a religious experience, right? And if you think you're with someone who's spiritual, but you don't actually connect on what that means, then you're not finding that. So it's understanding really specifically what those things are.
I love that.
And doing the work first yourself.
Yeah.
Asking yourself questions. Now, we don't always know what to ask, so I have a tool.
Yeah. What's your
tool? For people to ask themselves these questions, and then finding someone that you feel comfortable asking them with and having conversations about, because as you, I'm sure, would say, communication and really connecting with someone is so intimate that it's really a beautiful exercise. You just have to let yourself go there, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
It's magical when it happens.
There's that flow. Like you talked about earlier in the episode, that sort of alignment, those moments of alignment where it's like, oh, I'm with that right person in the right time in the right situation. And I don't know, there's something that gets evoked in being in like a really great dialogue and communication with someone. That just like it has that sense for me. And it sounds like it has that sense for you of like, yes, this is where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be in conversation and connection about.
Well, and I think some people are afraid of that. And I think some people are afraid of asking questions or feeling themselves enough to go there. But if you're with the right person, then it will take on a life of its own.
Yeah. I feel like you're the right person. Want to dive into some questions?
Yes. Yes, I so do.
Let's dive in. And I kind of want to do I kind of want to do a litmus test. Like you and I don't know each other so well.
Okay.
But I want to pause. I want us to both kind of feel into, and the audience too, of like, as you're listening, you probably know me a little bit more than Lindsay, but like, just see like.
Read the book and you'll know me a lot.
But you'll get to know Lindsay a lot more. And I want to kind of just like feel into like, how comfortable do I feel with you? How well do I feel like I know you? How connected do I feel to you? And like this, just like as a somatic kind of litmus test, like we're touching into that, and then we'll come back to that after we do some of the questions.
So I love that. I just want to say before that these questions are for people to ask themselves and then potential partner, and they vary in severity. We can definitely pick a few from each chapter.
Yeah,
circle and close your eyes and whatever. Pick anything. They're supposed to be answered as I questions, not you questions, because that's a way to share with someone who you are. And that's the jumping off point for starting a conversation. So do you, Do you have
Do
a
you want me to
particular?
pick a page and then
Yes, and no, I want you to pick a number,
a number?
1
Okay.
to 250, and we're gonna answer those questions.
67.
So 67 is the first question in the chores, domestic duties, and building a home chapter.
Oh my gosh.
Question 67.
Mhm.
Which would you choose, laundry or dishes?
Laundry for sure. Although I do we say why? Should we say
Yeah,
why?
go for it.
I've always been very particular about the way my laundry is done. Like maybe it's from living in Europe, but like I always use cold water,
That's interesting.
and I have a dryer, but I only use the dryer for towels and sheets, but I hang dry everything.
Are
And
your towels crunchy, or
no,
you're not your towels, but is your stuff crunchy?
no, 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 no. Mm-mm. I
See,
don't.
so already think of what I know about you already just from that one question.
I but now I'm second guessing. Is my clothes crunchy? No, it's not crunchy. But
Doesn't look
but
crunchy.
but I will say it also, like, I have gone through environments where like I lived in a dorm that was like kind of moldy and my clothes started to smell. And so
Mhm.
like it's evolved over the years as to like that process. But dishes on the other hand, I don't know what's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me, but I will say I see a pile of dishes and I look at it and I feel like it is looking at me and just suggesting to stay away.
That's so
Even
interesting.
though I will do the dishes.
So for me,
Yeah.
I don't mind doing laundry.
Okay.
I hate putting laundry away.
Oh.
Is that weird?
This
I don't mind doing it. I don't mind folding it.
Yeah.
But then in a perfect world, it would stay in a pile somewhere and someone else would put it away. That's the part of laundry that is not for me. It's the putting away.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just the thing. And then in terms of dishes, I love to cook. So if I'm really in it, I'll do the dishes while I cook. But
Oh.
I don't know, growing up in my house, if my mom would cook, my dad would spearhead the washing up. If my dad would cook, my mom would spearhead the washing up. We'd all do it as a
Well
family, but
balanced. Yeah.
it was a balance. It was like, thank you for cooking. I'll help you clean up, or I'll do the
Yeah.
cleanup. So I think what it sounds like is that I like teamwork.
Hmm. That's what we got to.
But my best friend, who we lived together in college, and then we lived together after for a period of time. She was like really anal about dishes, like
Mm.
really anal. Like her husband's the luckiest man on the planet because he hasn't done dishes in a very long time. She wouldn't let me do dishes, not because I wasn't good at doing dishes, but because she was so particular about how they had to
Wow.
be washed and rinsed. And in college, we didn't have a dishwasher, but
Yeah.
subsequently we did. But so there were a few years in my life where I didn't have to do dishes, and it was really nice.
Uh, I
That's
just
your ideal scenario, right?
Yeah, I was just reminded of the opposite experience of that when I was in college and had lived in an apartment with four roommates in New York City, as one does. And I think I was not good at dishes. Just, I want to put that out there. I'm working on it since the beginning of my times. And I remember coming home one day and all of the dishes were put on my bed, all the dirty dishes. And I remember calling my sister up and going like, "Can you believe this?" And she was like, "Finally, someone did that to you."
Are you still friends with these roommates?
Not at all. No, I think I moved out shortly thereafter, but it was towards the end of the school year anyways. So
So let's just pause for a second.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Here's the magic.
yeah.
Look, there's no pressure here because we're not on a date, right? So we're not,
Wait, we're not?
are we on a
Oh,
date?
this is so
Oh my God, I
embarrassing.
would have worn something totally different. I'm so sorry. Oh God. Gosh. Anyway, we asked a simple question:
Yeah.
laundry or dishes?
Hmm.
And we were each really open. We weren't like, Laundry, dishes.
Yeah.
We allowed ourselves to tell the other about us. We've
Yeah.
both spoken about college, university. I've spoken about a best friend, family. I'm not good at this part of it. You're not good at that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really fun.
Mm.
And it was just a question about laundry and dishes.
I know.
But you would never go on a date really early on, especially, and be like, this is so random, but laundry or dishes.
I would, but yes, most people would not.
Okay, maybe you're the anomaly here, but look at that. That's one question.
Yeah. The question I'm trying not to ask on first dates anymore is, what's your attachment style?
Maybe you should ask that. I thought you were going to say something like, what do you do? Because that's such like a typical.
I actually stopped asking that.
Yeah.
I started asking like, what brings you joy instead?
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. At least
But
in the beginning.
Specificity of question 67, right? Laundry or dishes, just with no barrier to entry, launched us into learning about each other.
Yeah. And I will say, if you're a person that, like, if you look at your text exchanges with people, and or if you're on dating apps, and or at emails even, and you look at it and you identify that you're giving the bare minimum, maybe even a one-word response, just to know what the difference would be like in that dynamic. And we're all busy. It's not like you are being shamed, but if we had just said dishes or laundry, it wouldn't have evoked the possibility for more closeness and connection.
When it makes the other person feel like you don't want that from them. So if you were just like, I don't know, dishes.
Yeah.
I'd think, I'll just say laundry.
Or if you have some history of feeling like you're too much because you're with someone who doesn't express themselves, then we're in the repetition of a dynamic that we probably feels really familiar.
It's really funny. I was on a podcast and one of the hosts said, so give me your advice here because I'm a bit full on. And I was like, yeah, that's great about you. And she said, well, I've been told that I'm a bit full on dates sometimes. And sometimes I just like to vomit information a bit and I should probably pull back, right? And I said, no, vomit. If that's who you are, why hold that back? Be you. Be you.
Yeah.
You is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to vomit on this person at some point anyway. So you may as well start early.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's so important to be you in these dynamics. And I'm going to throw this twister in there, which is to identify if some of the you is coming out of fear and anxiety and, and sort of like, that element of it, of like, am I vomiting because I feel like if I gave them space, they wouldn't respond or they would leave.
Right.
And that's also important to recognize, of like, be you, but also have a little check-in about like, where is the elements of you coming from? And if it's just like,
I'm just full on and I'm good with that. But also I think know you.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Know you, ask yourself these 250 questions.
Yeah.
Do you want to get to know you better? Yeah, that's another. Do you want to pick a number?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going to go 108. I don't know what that is. I love the number 8.
Okay.
Okay. This is an interesting one for us to dive into.
All right. I'm here for it.
This chapter, this is the children chapter.
Oh.
Question 108. Would you be willing to work with a fertility specialist if we struggled to have kids the traditional way? What are your feelings on freezing eggs, embryos, or sperm, on pursuing IVF, on surrogacy, adoption? Now, let me just preface your answer with this question is, for me, it's not enough to just say, would you be willing to work with a fertility specialist if we struggled to have kids the traditional way? I wanted to throw in other options there in case people didn't know what was available to them. But if you think about this, this is a question that calls into your thoughts on children, having children, money, health. So
it's a big
laundry,
question.
from laundry to dishes to if you couldn't naturally have children.
I mean, what's interesting is we're asking each other this question and I'm like, oh, I already I feel in me a sense of like contraction and pressure.
Do you?
I do. And it's like, and of course it's not about you and I, and it's my own like process around children in general of like, I'm at a certain age and
Yeah.
not in a relationship and so like and these are also questions that are running through my mind about like, would I do this alone?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the question is about, would I be open to navigating a process that is a lot, and I've guided people through this process quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit. So I know the challenges, the hardship, the finances, the stress, the
Mm-hmm.
pressure, and maybe that's some of where the internal pressure is coming from, is because
So,
yeah.
and this is a question for same-sex
Oh
couples,
yeah. Yeah.
heterosexual couples, like any couple can answer this question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
I will say I'm on the other side now. So for me,
Yeah.
this didn't make me contract because I know what I've been through, and I do have kids, so I'm very tired. But it does bring me back to a situation where I was dating a guy, and I'll never forget, we were sitting on his sofa,
Mhm.
and he was talking about a situation with his nephew.
Mhm.
This was such a long time ago, so I'm not breaching anything of anything here. And his nephew was, I think, around 13, 14 at the time, and uncircumcised,
Mhm.
and was getting made fun of at school in Connecticut. And it started us on a natural conversation about, well, I mean, if we were to have kids, we were never going to have kids. Like, there was no way, as much as I thought I wanted to end up with this person, he was not ready to ever be with me, have kids with me, any of it. But we had a whole thing of, if we had kids and we had a boy, would we circumcise him? And that was the first kind of clue in my life of, oh, you should talk about these things, because
Mhm.
my answer was, at the time, because I was too afraid to get into a conversation with him because I knew we were different in this respect. My response was, well, I would just pray that we would have girls.
Mm.
And that's the wrong answer in that situation. That was,
Mm.
oh God, I don't feel comfortable talking with you about this.
Yeah. And it's really it's through the hard conversations that we get to know or grow, either together or apart. And that's
Yeah.
scary. That's vulnerable, especially if we don't know the outcome, but we want a part of us wants the outcome to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we do one more question? One more
Definitely.
question for the road.
One
And
more
then
for the road. You can pick the number. You have 1 to 250.
9.
Okay.
Back to the beginning.
So it's funny because each chapter, the questions, it's not like if you pick 9, it's a less heavy question. I don't know what you're going to get. But because the book is broken up into each of these subheadings,
Mhm.
it's by design and a process. But
Mhm.
let's see what you have. So question 9 is the
Mhm.
last question in the animals and pets chapter.
Mhm.
And the reason I started with animals and pets as a
Yeah.
chapter is because, well, let's answer this question and then I'll come back to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Question 9. If we were to have a pet, what would the division of labor look like? Who would be responsible for walking, feeding, cleanup, vet visits, and so on?
So I'm thinking about, I did have a pet, 2 pets
Okay.
with
Well, should we
Spoon.
decide what pet we're going to have first?
You and I? Okay.
Mhm.
What is your favorite pet?
So I'm a dog person.
Okay. I'm also a dog person, but was going to say a chinchilla.
Okay. Okay. Let's go chinchilla.
Let's start small and then see how it goes.
Okay.
Somehow chinchilla with, I think, a lifespan of 2 to 3 years feels like less of a commitment.
Okay,
I'm
so
not a commitment phobe,
if
but
I'm sitting across from you and we're deciding what pets to get, and you're like, I'm thinking chinchilla. I'm like, do I want to have kids with a guy who can only handle something that lives for 2 to 3 years?
I like to call it a test run.
Okay. Okay. I respect that. I get to see your parenting style early.
You get to see my parenting style early, which, yeah. So a dog. I like dogs, and I had two dogs,
Mhm.
uh, two two Shih Tzus, Miss
Oh, I
Charlie.
love little dogs. Sorry,
I
what were
know,
their names?
Miss Charlie and Professor Whittle.
Love.
Yeah, they were delightful until they weren't, but they were delightful. I really, when I had a partner at the time, and what I really loved doing was co-walking them, co-going to the vet. I loved doing it collaboratively, and I certainly walked them by myself. And I remember after we separated, and I had the dogs, and I was like, "Ooh, I love doing it in teamwork and collaboration."
Did you split custody of these dogs or were they your dogs?
We did not because he had to move and was not able to take the dogs in that where he was living. So,
Interesting. I always find it interesting too when people split custody of a pet, how
mm,
that impacts future relationships. Like if you share the pet and there's another party involved, it's
yeah,
pretty interesting.
yeah, for sure.
So I think to come back to what I was saying before,
Hmm.
questions about pets are, again, low barrier to entry.
Yeah,
You find out about someone's childhood, past relationships. Hello, we just
yeah,
went straight there.
straight there.
How they care for things, what they like. It calls into question money in terms
Hmm.
of, do you get pet insurance? Oh, pets are expensive. I don't know that I
Mm,
want to take that on. Or, wow, I travel a lot for work, so I
yeah,
don't think I could be a fair pet owner.
yeah,
Or I live in a big city and I would love a dog, but don't always feel safe or comfortable walking them at night by myself.
mm,
All things like that are great conversations to have. And
yeah.
I think, especially with pets, you walk by the pet shop and you think something's cute, and you don't really ever think about what that really looks like.
Maybe it talks about impulse control and
Sure.
ability to do or existential or meta thinking.
Mhm. Or like, does this pet now sleep in the bed?
Oh yeah, of course, cuddle
Right.
time.
I totally agree with you, but not we're so compatible.
We're so compatible. This date is going so well.
Do you think there'll be another?
I hope so, Lindsay.
Oh my god, me too.
Well, let's do that litmus test that I invited all of us to check back into. Like, take a moment, close your eyes unless you're driving or walking, and tune in. Like, do you feel any sense of closer or more connected just by the information to Lindsay and I? And this question also goes to Lindsay and I of like, do we feel a little bit more connected, and how do we know that?
I know so much more about you than I thought I would after our time today.
Mm,
Truly,
yeah.
because you allowed yourself to look, you're the interviewer here, right? This is your show. But you were so kind and generous with you
Mhm.
and gave that to me. And I feel like we had a bit of a partnership
Mm,
time together
yeah.
today, which was so fun.
Mm. Well, thank you for being open to that. I mean, I know that like you also, it's easy to talk about a subject matter that we're experts in or something like that, but to also open up and share in a way that lets people come in and know you is such a beautiful, vulnerable gift,
And it's scary.
and it's scary.
It is scary. And things like my book, any literature, whatever that makes you feel comfortable is
Yeah.
such a worthwhile read. But what I've tried to do is give people on ramps to having conversations about each of these really important subjects, giving them other people's stories to show that they can have courage in broaching these topics with people they care about, whether it's a romantic relationship, potential, yourself, family, even. And then there's also just a great transatlantic love story that weaves itself through
Mm.
the book, which is what makes it different from other books in this genre, because it's very fun in that way. But it's meant to help people. A friend of mine is a chef, and she has a restaurant, and but she loves writing cookbooks. She says she loves to feed people at her restaurant, but when she gives people her cookbook, or when people buy her cookbooks, they can take her restaurant with them. And that's how I feel about this. I love, I love when people find themselves, and if I can help people achieve all of it, it just makes me feel so good.
I love that idea too of people come and go in our lives, and that's part of a natural rhythm, even if it doesn't mean, literally distancing of we're going to work. But there's this beautiful thing of in what you were sharing about your friend of when they take the cookbook, they take a part of them, the restaurant home with them. And I love that idea too, that as we ask questions and we get to know people in this way, we take the meaningfulness of connection and belonging with us as we move away in that moment, or as we drift apart, or as we go, that we take this accumulation of a sense of deep connection and belonging.
Yeah, and you're taking care of yourself by doing that, which we often forget to do, and sort of saying, well, I have needs, and it's okay to be in a relationship and have needs.
Yeah. Wait, one more time. I need that on a bumper sticker, please.
Yeah, it's okay to have needs and to be in a relationship and still have needs.
Yeah. And even to express those needs. Who knew?
My God.
If anyone ever tells you you have too many needs, they are reflecting the lack of capacity they have to meet you as a human being in your humanness.
Okay, please, did you just come up with that? Because that was brilliant. Or have you said that before? Because it was perfect.
No, I'm just saying that because I have lived it. I am speaking from the lived experience, my love.
So true.
Yeah, it really is. And we just often need reminders of that, of that. Yeah. Lindsay, you are such a gift.
Oh, this was so much fun.
Thank you for being here on The Gently Used Human. Where can people find more of you, read your books, get in touch with you?
So I'd love to hear from you. So find me on social at Lindsay Jill Roth. Find me at lindsayjillroth.com. Listen to this podcast, buy my book, fall in love. I'm here, and I want to hear from you.
Well, if you haven't fallen in love with Lindsay, you will. And give her a little love through the socials, through email.
I meant fall in love like you, whoever reads or whatever, fall in love. But they can fall in love with me too, and you. So that's...
I encourage all of it. I encourage
all love.
And to all our gently used humans out there, we love you. Thank you for listening to the Gently Used Human podcast with Dr. Scott Lyons and friends. Visit gentlyused.com for fun extras. And don't forget to spill the tea and gossip about the show with all your friends and frenemies. And show some love by giving us 5 stars and leaving a review in your favorite apps. This helps us connect with all the other gently used humans out there. Oh, and by the way, you look fierce today.